design.
Oh, well,
and
no,
we'll
Steve
take
goes,
it. Huh?
How much of my work?
April 17th.
I'd have to check, probably not very much.
background.
Exactly.
20,000 maybe.
This is
Twenty,
why,
much more, 20,000 more than she'd have got now.
this is why they put us with them. There's them, there's us.
Oh, Lord.
That
Yeah.
is why they did that.
You're fine.
Wow.
So, which,
They're making me
on the
laugh.
surface you go, it doesn't matter, but now that I'm looking at this opening business backup
Steve?
business, and
Mhm.
Morning.
who's gonna get
Steve.
shut down business.
This is my PE look.
Yeah, there's.
What do you think?
PE?
Yeah.
Your PE, you can be a PE teacher.
The PE teacher look,
I
right?
vote for ya.
You're okay, all right.
Band director.
Band director? Oh, yeah,
Knoxville's
see.
band director's leaving.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I read that somewhere. On Facebook, so it's official. I don't know where.
It's true.
Oh, we gotta save the best one for last, it's burnt.
You
All
like
right, so
your
let's go ahead and call this
Huh?
meeting of the
Like
Board of
all your meat.
Supervisors to order. Jake, roll call,
Keisha Johnner,
Here.
Mark Ramey,
here.
Steve McCombs.
Here,
All right, our agenda, our rolling agenda topic has been discussion of COVID-19 impacts on county operations. I think that's all we have for today. So are there any, or Steve, do you have anything?
well, Chris and I have been looking into the plexiglass things, what we're gonna try to do in the future.
Okay.
Or even now in short term at the East Elementary for some barriers, but the availability of quarter inch or any plexiglass is becoming very tight.
Okay.
So,
So let's go ahead and approve the agenda and then we'll talk a little
Okay.
bit about that. Is there a motion to approve this morning's agenda?
Make motion to approve today's agenda.
second,
McCombs,
aye,
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
All right, so we've been talking about, both in our temporary location and when we get back to the courthouse, how we're going to look, how we're gonna operate, given what we believe will be the new normal. That's yet to be defined a little bit. I don't know if you all saw this, but the president, yesterday, gave out these guidelines, opening up America. And I'm sure each governor will put their own flavor to it. I was gonna say something else, but we'll say that for now. For us as a government entity, so Steve, you looked into plexiglass and what was the,
well, the availability of it is practically nil.
okay,
It's kinda, I don't know, I think everybody is the same thing like toilet paper, you know?
yeah,
The, which is okay, at the price of quarter inch, which if we were to use plexiglass, I think quarter inch would be the right thing to use. This is like $200 a sheet.
Mhm.
Okay.
But Chris and I both kind of talked that over yesterday somewhat, and I think the best way for us to go, especially in the future at the courthouse, would be to go with some type of safety glass, so it'd be more permanent, and we wouldn't have to worry about wiping it down, scratching it and everything.
right,
Not only would it give a type of barrier for germs, I think also it would provide some better safety for those departments to separate them from the public better.
right,
And not just for not for any medical issues, but just for any irate customer.
yeah,
You know, so I think that's what we were looking at for long term at the courthouse.
okay,
Obviously, at East Elementary, we probably still have to go with some type of plexiglass, but it wouldn't have to be as big a sheets as what
right,
we'd have to do at the courthouse.
Okay.
So we're still working on that.
I would just say that the glass that you folks put into my fourth floor courtroom office, now going on 8 years, has stood the test of time, easily cleaned, and we've had no issues with it whatsoever. So we've done it before. We did that when I took office. We put glass across, and it's been great.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go, Ed, myself, for
Did we need to
long-term.
be looking at ordering that though? Is it going to become shortage, you think, or?
Oh, no, I don't think glass will. He's getting some quotes from Pella Glass, I think, today, so.
Okay, that'll be good.
And I think the company that's working on the elevator has agreed to put some steel frames in at those locations that we can place the glass in, so.
Excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
So we're on it.
Good, I appreciate that, Steve, thank you. If you get a chance though, I really want to encourage you to look at these guidelines. I went through them last night, it's an easy read. But when you look at the phased opening that
Yeah,
they're
that's
talking about, and when people can have gatherings of 10, when people have gatherings of 50, there's definitely a staging idea here that other states are going to adopt. Now, they may put a different flavor to it and try to look like they're acting all independent, but this is coming from Burke and Fauci on how to do this so you don't have another bloom in the fall. So I have a feeling once Reynolds gets a hold of this, she'll tailor something like this. And I think we need to become familiar with these guidelines as we think about how we will reopen as a county government. Because it's not just foregone conclusion that once they say we're ready to start going, that courthouse will be open.
right.
It looks like a second tier event. So this could stretch out another till June before we say, hey, we're ready to start having groups of 20, groups of 40, whatever those groups are. It's interesting in here because restaurants and in-service dining are in phase 1. Bars are shut down until phase 2.
Yeah, and I was trying to understand that, Mark, maybe, and I don't know if we want to discuss that now or, but I mean, when reading that, when I went to the president's website and I looked at that, so if you have a bloom again, do you come back down?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the kind of the gray area that's.
If there, and the guidelines talk about it, if there is an increase in cases and it's designed to be localized. So if there's a local event, then everything can be dialed back down. We're now to the point of prevention, not mitigation.
Okay, yeah.
There are mitigating behaviors that will continue for a certain period of time as the tail of this goes into the summer, but now it's about prevention. So if there's a bloom, things will be dialed back down, but it'll be a very localized event. That's the idea behind the plan. It's not to be national again.
I wonder how they're making their distinction when you say phase 1, phase 2, like the restaurants open in phase 1, bars open in phase 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they've got when you look at the guidelines here, I'll even go through it. I mean, they've got general guidelines for all phases for individuals. So the general guidelines are still wash your hands, avoid touching your face, face coverings, disinfect, etc. Don't go to work or school if you're sick, and follow the advice you met. So many of the behaviors we've talked about, it's just saying those are now behaviors. For employers, social distancing, protective equipment, temperature checks, testing, isolation, contact tracing, sanitation, disinfection, and then what do you do with business travel? That will be a new question, okay? So on phase 1, I'll try to get to the key issues here. All vulnerable individuals continue to shelter in place. Notice the use of the language. So if you are of that group that has those conditions, they're still saying stay home. When in public, parks, outdoor recreation areas, shopping areas, maximize physical distance. Social settings of more than 10 people where appropriate may not be practical and should be avoided. Avoid socializing in groups more than 10 and circumstances do not readily allow for appropriate physical distancing. Minimize non-essential travel. Okay, so they're still saying in phase 1, it's be careful about going above 10. Okay, so this gets to our old church question a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Employers encourage telework, return to work in phases, close common areas, minimize non-essential travel, strongly consider special accommodations for vulnerable people. Schools and organized youth activities that are closed should remain closed. So Reynolds today was gonna come out with her announcement on schools. I think she just got it.
Mhm.
Because I doubt she's gonna go against the president. I'll be shocked if she says, oh, we can open up. They're saying if it's currently closed, it should just stay closed. Visits to senior living facilities and hospitals should be prohibited. Large venues, sit-down dining, movie theaters, sporting venues, places of worship can operate under strict physical distancing protocols. So phase one is saying churches can start meeting again, but you've got to accommodate the social distancing. There's gonna be absolutely no way to enforce this. Okay, so this gets to Jason's email. The enforcement is on us. This is us. Elective surgeries can resume. Gyms can open if they adhere to strict physical distancing and sanitation. Bars should remain closed.
I think that's interesting.
It's because they don't have any distancing.
Yeah, they're smaller.
Most bars are not structured to have, everybody goes up, and then as you drink, physical distancing's out the window. So I read it and I went, I get it. Phase two, vulnerable individuals still shelter in place. Now you're up to social settings of more than 50 people in phase two.
And so go back on the date or the time frame. Was that like a 14-day? Isn't that what he said on phase one?
No, it's you have to pass certain tests. In other words, you don't have any more cases. Your new hospitalizations are down to zero. I mean,
So there's no timeline, it's database.
it's database. Yep. They're hoping, they mentioned that 14 days,
Yeah.
Keisha, as hoping that each one would go about that period, but it's database.
Okay. That's where I was trying to understand that correctly.
If you continue with new infections, if your hospitalization rates don't go down, you don't get to phase two. You have to get there to get to phase two. Non-essential business travel can resume under phase two. Employers still telework, encourage closed common areas. Non-essential travel can resume and special accommodations. So the employer piece is relaxing. Phase two, schools and organized youth activities can reopen. Phase two. Visitors, still visitors to senior care and hospitals should be prohibited. Large venues can operate, so the same ones, sit-down dining, movie theaters, sporting, places of worship with moderate physical distancing protocols. So there's a relaxation there, right? Elective surgeries can resume. Gyms can remain open, again, the same issue. Now, bars may operate with diminished standing room occupancy where applicable and appropriate. So phase two is where bars open, okay? I wonder how many of our local bars will start serving food and say they're restaurants. Phase three, and it even tells you in the front end, for states and regions with no evidence of a rebound and that satisfy the gating criteria a third time. There's 3 tests. Just because you passed it the first time doesn't mean you get to go on to the next phase. You have to show over probably a period of weeks that you can meet that criteria. Vulnerable individuals can resume public interaction. Low-risk populations should consider minimizing time spent in crowded environments. Employers resume unrestricted staffing of worksite. And then by phase 3, visits to senior care facilities and hospitals can resume. Large venues can operate under limited physical distancing protocols. Gyms can remain open. Bars may operate with increased standing room occupancy where applicable.
So in phase one, the common places are closed.
Yes.
So that affects how we're gonna do business.
Well, yeah, common places for employers are closed in phase 1.
Until.
But that would be for public venues, Steve, that would count, we would count in that.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. So I think we just need to understand these, go through them, see how, especially for us, how our governor reacts. So if phase 1, Steve, closed common areas where personnel are likely to congregate and interact and force, we're not gonna have a large number of people floating around the courthouse.
Well, that affects our meeting then at 11 o'clock. Ed? I can't hear him.
He's muted. He's got himself muted.
So anyway, we'll look at these, we'll be talking more about these.
Hold on, I'm sorry, guys, I hit the wrong button.
No, it's all right.
Mark, I'm just curious, I read that and, the gathering places, I interpreted that differently than you did. I would just indicate, that looked to me like closing break rooms, cafeterias at a work site. That's the way I interpreted that, that language.
And Ed, I agree with you, but I would say that since our courthouse has no break areas, cafeterias or anything, our congregating area, our common area is
The hallway.
the hallway.
Okay,
So if I was at 3M right now, I wouldn't be closing just the 2 cafeterias. I'd be closing any place employees or the public congregate.
And like Vermeer's already done that, they've done that for the last.
So
2
the
weeks.
security desk at 3M would be by appointment. I mean, you couldn't just have 8, where my dad worked there, you used to have 12 people hanging around that desk. That would not happen anymore. So I think you're right, but I think we have to be on the side of conservative rather than, just saying, because we don't have those areas. Our common area is the rotunda area.
sure.
So when we get to phase 2, what are the facts that drive into phase 2?
So you get to phase 2, Steve, and I'll read right off the document.
Mark, before you go there, I'm just curious, and when Kim and Jeff and your interpretation, I don't believe, based on the statistical analysis from our state, we're anywhere close to even entering phase 1. That phase 1 is for the state of Washington, Oregon, and California as of May 1st. Are you reading it differently? Because we're still almost having 100 to 130 new cases a day. It would seem like we're months away from even entering phase 1, or at least another month. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree with you. And to get to phase 1, they just say for states and regions that satisfy the gating criteria. Well, the gating criteria are that your cases are going down. This is the discretion for governors. Phase 1 is going to be a governor says, I think we're ready.
Okay.
So when Trump says, I'm going to let governors decide, that's his decision. Now you're into the process, and now the other phases have certain criteria, they're broad. But I don't think, I mean, to your point, Ed, knowing that the data that we get from the state is a hodgepodge of, frankly, unreliable information, I don't know where we are, to be honest.
And her regional, having things put together in these regions, the rural areas of Iowa are in those regions, probably for the purpose of diluting the numbers that are in the, so I don't know how that's going to,
How it's gonna play
ferret
into that.
out.
So Ed, to your point, when Kim and I and Jeff have talked about these regions that they established, I made the comment right away, Kim saw it, Jeff saw it right away. They stuck our hot spots into these regions and diluted the effect. And so we had a region yesterday go to 10, and all they did was say, hey, don't gather socially. Still they said when it got to 10, there would be other actions. Well, the other actions, they're not willing to pull the trigger on. So I'm concerned right now that we'll get into phase 1. We'll get into phase 1 before we really know the full effect of what's going on. Yep.
And I don't disagree with that. The other reason I mention that is, in our messaging, I think that the letter that we received from the pastor yesterday evening, that's the tip of the iceberg. And when you see, Jason's comment, or they're like, hey, he's calmed down until May, I think our messaging needs, I don't know, none of us want to fight this battle. None of us want to, the last thing I know Jason wants to do, or I want to do, is arrest or prosecute someone for a violation of this governor's order. But I think
Let's talk about that for a minute, Ed, and we're in open meeting, so I'm a little reluctant to do that in open meeting. So
Okay.
let's go to closed meeting and let's have that discussion. So I would entertain a motion to close open.
Make a motion, we close open session.
Second?
McCombs,
Aye?
Ramey,
Aye?
Johnner,
Aye.
Losing control of this meeting, what's going on?
Keisha.
We're back
Keisha
on.
Definitely needs to shut this closed session down.
We're back in open.
All right, is there a
Okay,
motion
thank
to, reopen open?
I make motion, we open back into open session. I don't know.
Second.
She's stuck on Monica.
Johnner,
Aye.
McCombs,
Aye?
Ramey,
Yep.
thank you.
We had a lively discussion in closed session on a variety of topics related to COVID-19. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make motion, we adjourn.
Second.
McCombs,
Aye?
Ramey,
Aye.
Johnner,
Aye.
We are
thanks guys.
adjourned.